it's Presley at ActOutGames.com here, and today we're going to be talking about the new signing line policies at Vidcon.
I've been wondering about this since they announced it, and so I thought I'd run it by you and see what your thoughts are, and see what you guys think they're going to do.
Yes.
And maybe it's because of what I do. It involves like stats and stuff, since I do math for a living, kind of.
What I do is I talk to a camera for my living.
You talk to a camera for a living. That's exactly right. So I do math, and so I've been really curious about, they announced that, at least for the big lines, they've announced now for everybody, that you have to pre-register for the signings, right?
Yeah.
You remember that?
Mm-hmm.
So the way they had it before was you list your top 3 people that you want to see, and everybody does that's going and has tickets that they can go to signings, and then they'll do a lottery and draw tickets.
Yeah, so that's not happening anymore, yeah?
No, that's still happening. That's what's happening. That's exactly what's happening now. Is that it was going to be like the biggest people were going to be done that way. And then everybody else was still going to be first come, first serve, and you could wait in line and you could see people. But they announced the other day that they're going to do everybody you have to get tickets for. But they announced it on the 1st, and so everybody still thinks it could maybe be an April Fool's joke. Although that doesn't sound very April Foolsy. So that's probably what they're going to do. So there will probably be more than 3 that you put on the list. But here's my question to you. All right. So everybody goes in and writes down the top 3 people that they want to be on their list, right? So, we've got the John Green and Allie and whoever else we want to see. If you want to see Dan and Phil, whoever we want to put on the list to see, right? So what do you think happens next? How do you think they use that information to pick who gets to get the signing done?
I don't know. I guess they use some sort of, maybe they put in, that would take a lot of time to put in all the names and then randomize.
Well, but I think they're going to randomize it. I'm sure they're going to put them all on the computer. When you enter it in, it'll go into a computer. So they'll have a big list that says Presley, number 1 on Presley's list is Allie Speed. And number 2 is John Green. And number 3 is Dan. What's Dan's last name?
Dan Howell.
Dan Howell?
Yes.
All right, Dan Howell. Dan is
even though I want
not on fire.
Dan is not on fire.
Dan is not on fire.
But Amazing Phil and Dan is on fire normally do signings together because they're best friends.
So
they live together.
All right, so Dan and Phil, right? Yes, so those are your 3, right? Yeah. And then somebody else puts Dan and Phil as number 1, and Allie is number 2, and John Green is number 3, and somebody else puts John Green as number 1. People put them in different orders. Different people put their list in different orders. How do you think they set the list of who they're going to randomly pick from? What do you think they do with that information? That's what I'm curious about. Math. I'm sure they do some kind of math. What do you think they do? I'm curious. How would you separate those things out when you were doing your lottery?
I honestly don't know. Right now, what's going on in my head is on Scratch is you put in all the names,
right,
and then you click put randomize.
Right. No. So right. So, but do you if you put John Green as number 1, and somebody else puts John Green as number 3,
then we're probably more likely to get John Green?
Well, that's what I'm wondering, right? Yeah. So if you just take everybody that put John Green somewhere on their list and put them in a big list and then pick them randomly, then it doesn't matter whether you put him number 1 or number 3.
Yes.
Right? Mm-hmm. So how do you think they're going to take into account the people who put him number 1 versus who put him number 2 versus who put him number 3? How do you think they address that?
There has to be some fancy computer program that does this. I don't know where this is.
Okay, I'll tell you what I think. Yes. There's two ways I can see doing it. Okay. Right? And I'm really curious if people have other proposals about how they should do it, or what you think they're going to do, right? So the 2 that I can see that make the most sense to me, all right, are, and like I said, this is probably just me being in my head and loving the way that these things work, right?
My opinion is probably what I'm doing, being in my head, since I do a lot of programming on Scratch. So
you can write a program to do this. We'll talk about what I think they're going to do, and you can write programs that simulate it, and we can see how it'll work. That would be really interesting.
Yeah, right? I can probably do it.
So another example of this is I love elevator algorithms, how a building knows where to put the elevators at different times, so they're waiting, so you have to wait the times.
Uncomfortable. I don't like the doors.
So there's all these really cool, sophisticated algorithms about in a building. Let's say you have 3 elevators, and the building's 15 stories tall, and in the morning you want them to wait at the bottom because you've got more people coming in and going up, and in the afternoon you spaced them through the top floors so that they're there when people hit the button to come back down. So there's all these really cool algorithms for optimizing processes, and so this is kind of a process optimization.
I really thought it was you just press a button, it goes to you.
I know, but always got to think, like, where was it? Where was it when you hit the button? Do they all just stay at the bottom all the time? And then that doesn't make sense in the afternoon because you've got people from the top floors that are coming down in the afternoon or at lunchtime. So it's a cool thing. Anyway, so the two ways I see that they can do this that make sense are you can take all of the people that put John Green as number one and you randomize that list.
Yeah.
Right? And then if there are spaces to see John Green left over, you go to the people that put him as number two. And then if you give all of those people spaces and there's space left over, you go to the people that put him as number three.
Okay.
All right?
Okay.
Like that seems to make sense to me. That's one way. And so everybody, before anyone who has him listed as number two gets in line, all of the people who had him as number one get in the list.
Okay.
Right? So putting him as number one is the best way to do it. Because if you put him as number two and all the number ones fill up, then you never get a chance, right?
Yeah.
So that's one way. That's the simplest way probably, right? So the other way that I can see it happening...
I seriously hope that now that it's not like you spend your whole day waiting in line.
Oh, it's totally not. That's why they're doing this.
Yeah,
is to take that away.
Yeah, I hope, since it's not that anymore, I hope VidCon is more go around and meet the people instead of wait in lines.
Yeah, no, they said like you show up like 45 minutes before the signing now.
Yeah.
And it's already on your wristband.
And you don't show up at like 6 a.m.
Oh, no, we got in line at 4 o'clock in the morning
Yeah.
to see those guys at like 10, and we didn't see them until like, we were in line for like 7.5 hours or something.
I know.
And it was worth it. I loved seeing them, and it was awesome, but it's still, I'm glad we're not doing that this year.
Yes.
So the other way that you can do it that's kind of interesting is you say, if I put him as number one on my list, you put my name in the drawing 3 times. And if I put him as number 2 on my list, you put my name in the drawing twice. And if I put him as number 3 on my list, you put my name in the drawing once.
Huh.
So the people who put him as number 1 have more chances. Their name is in the bucket more often, right? But it still could be that someone who put him as number 3 on the list get drawn. I mean, it's still sort of luck of the draw, right?
Yeah.
And so that seems like kind of a fair distribution too, because like you don't want only to see the person you put number 1. But it seems like if you put him as number 1 on your list, then you get 5 entries into the contest. And if you put him as number 2, you get 3. And if you put him as number 3, you get 1. And you sort of space out the odds that way. And then you draw the 1,000 people that get in line to see John Green, and they can be sort of distributed. But your odds are better if you put him as number 1.
Yeah.
So that's another way. And like the basketball lottery draft kind of happens that way.
Basketball.
Yeah, there's a whole NBA thing that kind of happens that way. But I think it's a really cool model for doing that kind of a selection, right? What do you think? Which one do you like better?
Which one do you mean, like which?
Like if you do all of the number 1s, all the number 2s, and then all the number 3s, or you just stack the odds and do it one drawing.
Well, luck of the draw just kind of seems sort of. This is how I thought it would be done, by the way.
Yeah, okay.
It seems sort of unfair, because what if you really, really wanted to see this person,
right,
and then someone who put it on, like, and I sort of like him, put him on 3 on my list.
Right.
And then
so you think
everyone
everyone who said this person's number 1 should get in line before anybody that said number 2?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're probably
Which
right.
I don't really care, even though I probably would never get in line for Dan and Phil, because lots of people love Dan and Phil. Hey, now that we're not going to be waiting in line for hours and hours, there's more of a chance that we actually get to see them.
Well, that's the beauty, is that you'll know, like by the time we go to VidCon, or like a month before we go to VidCon, you'll know who you're going to get to see in the signing lines and who you're not.
Yes.
And then if people do meetups and other stuff outside of that, you can plan to go do those things.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm curious what you guys think. Which of those things do you think? Which of those ways of doing the lottery do you think they'll do, or do you think they'll do something completely different? Do you have any ideas about what's going to happen? I'm really curious how they're going to implement it.
Yep.
And then so we'll take those 2 things that I just described, and you'll put a program together in Scratch that implements them.
I will attempt, without hopefully not making Scratch like explode due to how big the file will be.
Well, no, we'll do a small thing.
Okay.
We'll take like a bunch of random names,
Yeah.
and then we'll space things out that way, and we'll kind of look and see what it looks like when we draw those, and maybe we'll report back what our findings are. But that'll be a cool experiment.
Yes.
Yeah? Awesome.
Except for the names have to be the ridiculous names I come up with my friends, because
I think you could totally do that.
Yay.
You can use your randomizer, or you can come
Mrs.
up with names.
Dinkleberry for the win.
I think that's totally fine. Cool. All right. Anything else?
Not really.
All right. We'll sign us off.
So yeah, thank you for watching, and see you tomorrow. Bye.
Bye, guys.
It's time to press the subscribe button. Subscribe button. Subscribe button. Subscribe. Bye 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 bye.